welcome to Housing.com. I'm Chamur Ghosh, Editor-in-Chief, Housing.com News, and we are in conversation today with Dhruv Agarwala, who's the CEO of Housing.com, on the impact that the coronavirus pandemic is going to have and is having on the real estate sector. Sir, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you, Jhamar.
So I'd like to start off with your overall assessment of the situation. A lot has happened in the last few months, in the last few weeks. We are in the middle of a 21-day lockdown. Several businesses have practically come to a standstill. Of course, the government has started responding to the situation. There has been a coronavirus stimulus package announced by the Finance Ministry for the poor who are currently the most vulnerable in this situation. The RBI has announced a much needed 3-month moratorium on all loan EMIs, including home loans. They've cut back on their repo rate, their reverse repo rate. So things are happening. The government is trying to respond to the situation. So in the middle of all of this, what do you think has been the impact on the real estate sector, and what will be the long-term impact?
Jhamur, at the outset, what I would like to say that I think the coronavirus, is really a big human tragedy. As we speak, close to 600,000 people across the globe, have been infected, and the death toll has reached close to 28,000. And as we speak, it continues to climb. I think every government across the globe realizes the long-term impact this can have on our society overall, and are taking some unheard of steps and unprecedented measures to stem the growth of the virus. From an economic standpoint, we all understand that wherever lockdowns are announced, economic activity will take a hit. If you look at India, a 21-day lockdown has been announced. All activities pretty much other than essential services have come to a complete standstill. So economic activity across sectors will get hurt, and real estate is no different.
Yeah. So, in all of this, obviously, people are asking the question that how will this impact prices? What's your take? Are we going to see a price crash? Do you think there'll be a price correction, or do you think it's too soon to say?
I think it's too soon to say, Jumur, in terms of how this unfolds. We are just in the early days of the lockdown yet. We can't even predict at this stage whether the lockdown until the middle of April will be sufficient to stem the growth of the virus. So things are still very open-ended at this point in time. As far as real estate prices are concerned, over the last 5 years, we've seen that they've stayed more or less stagnant, or have gone down slightly in certain cities or gone up marginally in certain cities. So real estate prices are already pretty low if we look at a 5-year period. As far as interest rates are concerned, they are again at a multi-year low. The RBI has taken some steps to bring down interest rates further. So in terms of affordability, home purchase can't be more affordable than it is right now. But just given the economic impact this virus is going to have, people are going to be worried about a lot of other things in terms of job losses, in businesses being worried about running out of cash, revenues going down, and it's hard to predict how quickly all this will come back. So at this point in time, it's very, very hard to predict where prices will go. But clearly one thing is pretty certain, that demand over the next few months is going to be very, very low. And that might put pressure, especially on developers, to lower their prices in order to start moving property. But as I said, it's too early to comment how this thing plays out.
Yeah. So I'd like to speak about, one of the more promising segments of residential real estate, which is the co-living. Now that, the job scenario will obviously be very unpredictable in the next few months, what kind of an impact do you think this entire situation will have on the co-living space?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, no segment is going to really be spared by this virus. Clearly, commercial real estate is one area where there will be a big impact. A 21-day lockdown where people are working from home and are unable to step out, clearly the rent bill, continues to pile up. And if this continues for longer, uh, tenants will try and invoke the force majeure clause to avoid paying rent, which will have a big impact on commercial real estate. My sense is, as far as co-living is concerned, as and when the lockdown was announced, I'm pretty certain that a lot of people actually went back home to be with their families. Given the fact that schools and colleges have all been shut down, and everywhere people are, holding classes online. So I think in the short term, clearly co-living would have been impacted with occupancies falling dramatically. And once things start to come back to normal, I think people will want to make sure that the hygiene levels are very, very strong in wherever they are living, so that people do not get worried about falling ill all over again. So I think there will be some level of uncertainty and skepticism which people may have about going to community living places. But I think over a longer period of time, on the medium to long term, I don't see this having a big impact on this sector. In the short term, yes, there will be displacement, there will be concerns people would have, but I don't think this changes anything for the medium to long term.
Yeah. So we're talking about the real estate sector. What is your assessment? Do you think that some sectors will be more hit than the others, or do you think sectors, businesses across the spectrum are going to be impacted by this? What's your take on the other sectors as well that are going to get impacted, not just real estate?
See, I think all sectors, as I said, will be impacted by this. Clearly there are some sectors such as travel, hotels, restaurants, movie theaters, transportation. All these have taken a big hit, and these are the sectors which will also take a long time to bounce back, because people would still be wary of traveling. Once the lockdown is removed. So these sectors clearly will take a long time, but we also have to remember that there is going to be second order effects across all industries. With this lockdown, manufacturing has been impacted, services have been impacted, every sector has been impacted. And the second order effects of all of these, which kind of flow through the entire economy, could be pretty difficult. I think one thing which is very, very positive, and you kind of alluded to this at the start of this conversation, is that the RBI has come out and given a massive stimulus, with taking several measures to improve liquidity in the system, reducing both repo rates as well as reverse repo rates, bringing on a moratorium of loan payments, EMI payments. I think this is going to go a long way on easing the pain that businesses and individuals and families are currently facing. But it's hard to say whether this would be sufficient. Things are evolving. And as we go forward, and if this continues for longer, we might need even a bigger package. I think the 1,74,000 crore package which the government announced for the weaker sections of society, I think was very, very important. One of the things we forget in all of this is that, as I mentioned earlier, it is a human tragedy. For daily wage workers, for people who are poor, I think the cost of the lockdown, can be very, very significant, and can have some, permanent implications. So I think this was a very welcome move by the government and the RBI. But as I said, depending on how the situation evolves, this may not be sufficient, and more might need to be done as we go along.
Yeah. So my last question to you is about a post-coronavirus world. I know it seems a far way off from now, but the real work of recovery will obviously start once the danger of the pandemic is over. What would be your recommendation or advice for both developers and brokers? What should they do to bounce back once this pandemic is over?
See, I think the most important thing for everyone to manage at this point in time is their finances. I think it is very, very important for everyone to do that, so that businesses don't face long term damage. I think the moratorium on loans will be a big help in that regard. I think the important thing right now is, I think, for all of us to maintain a positive spirit, and pray that this thing blows over soon. I think, as I say with with real estate, There is a huge latent demand in the country for residential real estate. There is urbanization happening. It is a young population. Job growth is there. So all the long-term secular trends point to a very healthy real estate market overall. I think in the short term, this is a major shock to the economy overall, to the real estate sector at the micro level, to companies, because for most companies, revenues have pretty much come to a standstill, in this period. So people will just have to manage their finances carefully and ensure that once things start to come back to normal, one should just get back to resuming normal business activity as quickly as possible.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your insights. That's all that we have time for today. But we do hope to see you soon. Please stay indoors. Please stay safe. And goodbye for now.